Then one day, I find my mother bent over a sofa, getting nailed by a stranger, and everything fell. Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, going to go over a story titled, Should I Invite My Parents to My Wedding Despite Cutting Them Out of My Life? A big shout out to Joseph for sending me this story. And guys, this story is about a guy. He is only 22 years old, I believe. And long story short, he has cut his parents out of his life. Why, you may ask? Because when he was 16 years old, he discovered that they had an open marriage, where he walked in on his mom getting plowed by some other dude, which then explained all sorts of things why his parents were such shitty parents to him, never there for him, amongst many other things. And you're going to see in the story, guys, once again showing how these open relationships, open marriages cause nothing but chaos for everyone. Except, of course, the person that wants the chaos in their life. In this situation, the kid. The parents seem like they're both on board for this open relationship lifestyle, but the kid is not. And it just completely destroyed the relationship with them. And now he's about to get married at a ridiculously young age, and I'll come back to that later. And his fiancée obviously wants him to reconnect with the family. Big surprise there. And, of course, they want to get back into contact with him as well. And he's going to go through this whole thing, how he discovers this, and the impact it had on him, and why, once he finds this out, how it connected all the dots, why they were never around, always out at night, never came to his sporting events, never were always late to pick him up from things. I mean, it just goes on and on. He was just, their lifestyle was more important to them than him, their own kid. Now, you're going to see as I go through this guy is a bit on the emotional side. Now, I understand being unhappy about this whole thing, and it's definitely changed his world and all that. But there are times when he's way overboard, I think, in terms of the waterworks about this whole type of thing. Guy needs some help. But I'm doing this regardless, just to show you the damage this whole thing caused, because I've been against this whole open relationship, open marriage nonsense from day one. It's a fucking mess. And it's one thing if two people both go into it consensual. They're both into that lifestyle, fine. But they should not have children, in my opinion. And if they have kids and they have this lifestyle, that's abuse, in my opinion. And they're screwing those kids up. And there's a perfect example of that. So it starts off, it says here, to give some background, one day when I was 16 years old, I was out with my friends at the mall when I caught my mom out with a man I didn't recognize. He had his hand on her butt, and they were just walking out of the mall. That'd be a surprise. You'd want to go up and whip that guy's ass and then yell at her. I told my friend to follow their car, and I found him leading him into his house. At this point, I'm freaking the F out. I'm thinking my mother is having an affair, and I'm literally shaking with fear. After I eventually catch them, I go off in a frenzy on her for cheating on my father. She frantically calls my father. Eventually, they both take me home and explain to me that they are in an open marriage. Kaboom. There you go. He's thinking mom's cheating, and how could you do this? And, oh, well, by the way, sweetie, we both F other people. Makes him wonder, is this really my dad? This destroyed me, and I cried the whole night. I begged them to stop this for my sake. I just wanted them to be normal. I told them I couldn't stomach any of this. They stopped for a little while, but then about a month later, they started again. Well, of course they started again. They're addicted to this. From that point forward, I couldn't look at my parents in their eyes. I wanted to vomit every time I saw them going out of the house alone, and on one day, when I saw my mother dressed up nicely and going out alone, I just started bawling out and crying, and after I calmed down a bit, she went anyway, and she did not come home all night. So I get this is upsetting and screwing up his whole view on his parents, and I get he's a teenager and all that, but good Lord, dude, let's ease up on the waterworks. You can be upset, but let's not. He's getting more emotional than a damn woman. But I'm going to guess they didn't pay a lot of attention to him, and his father didn't lay a good example, and this is probably why. And I get he's upset, but I hope you all know what I'm talking about here. The whole thing just changed how I view my parents, and the more I was around them, the less I wanted to be. With this in mind, after that day, my relationship with them just ground to a stop. I had to mentally completely disconnect from them in an effort to not go into depression. My only goal was to get out of the house as fast as I could. I don't blame him. So their SEX life, their adventures, their escapades is way more important to them than their son. And that's bullshit. Again, if it's just the two of them, that's one thing. I don't agree with it, but that's their lifestyle. But when they have kids in the mix, that's selfish. We completely stopped talking, and I spent as little time as possible at home. And they probably didn't give a shit. Thus, after graduation, I decided to leave and cut them out of my life. They tried to stop me, telling me that they are happy this way, and I said that every night one of them was gone, I cried. They told me they wanted me to be happy. They wanted to be happy, and this was the only way they could continue to be together, and I said that I couldn't be happy if I continued to be in their life. Eventually, my father says it was none of my business what they did in their bedroom, and I said it's none of their business who I choose to associate with. Well, what they're doing is not with each other in their bedroom, they're in other people's bedrooms. And he wants to have parents like other people that, God forbid, are together and he can feel close to. But again, as you're going to see, this explains why they're never around, never always like to pick him up, not at sporting events, and he was just an afterthought. All this matters because, well, this was some 4 years ago. After I left, and I just proposed to my fiancée. Smack! You're that young and you're proposing to a girl. I'm convinced because this guy's family life is so screwed up, he's dying as quickly as possible to start his own. A lot of people that had shitty family lives really rush into a marriage so they can start over and fix what was screwed up. And when anybody rushes into something like this, it is a recipe for disaster. Bad idea. Then I got a call from them, and while I usually never pick up, I did this day. We talked normally, and they asked me about my fiancée. They have met her. We were high school sweethearts, and I told them. She asked if it would be okay if me and my fiancée came to visit. I said I couldn't. I know they're still having sex with other people, and the memories just won't go away. Hey, he's an adult now, and if he doesn't have anything to do with them because of their lifestyle, and obviously because it isn't just about the lifestyle, it's also because he was just an afterthought to them. That's his business. Every time I talk to her or think about it, I just want to gouge out my eyes. Then she asked if I would be okay if they came to the wedding, and I said I'd think about it. My fiancé has said maybe it's time to let them back in my life. Nevertheless, maybe it's their right as my parents to attend my wedding. Should I let them? And I'd say no. Well, first of all, I'd say don't get married. You're too freaking young, kid. You need to establish yourself in a career, get to really know your girl more. You're rushing into things, in my opinion, because you had a shitty family life and you want to start your own. Bad idea. Take your time. But back to the wedding thing, when you get married, if you have nothing to do with them and you have good reason for it, that's your business. You don't know of anything because obviously they didn't care to change for you. My fiancé said, I read that part. Now, he has a lot of edits and updates and explaining things behind the scenes because he gets a lot of questions. You can't post something about open marriages that everybody commenting from different sides of the spectrum. He says, as an edit, just for some clarifications, I'm not malicious against them. I just don't want them to be part of my life anymore. If they want to do what they do, fine, that's their business. Also, I'm doing this because my fiancé says it's time to try to reconcile. She knows how deeply I don't want to, and she has said at the end of the day, it's my choice. Well, if it's his choice, leave him the hell alone. But she has also asked me to try and make a change, if I'm ready. I love her, and for the sake of her, I will try. Smack. If your gut tells you it's a bad move, trust your gut. Don't do this just for her. It's not her business. I don't care if she's his future wife. She's probably his future ex-wife. Another one, he says, I'm not particularly religious as I question my religion all the time. I do go to communion as my grandparents used to take me all the time. But I'm not sure there is a God. But if you make me put on paper, I would put down that I'm Catholic. Other stuff about me, I'm a pre-medical student and I'm paying for my own way through college. Wow. If he's going to be a doctor and he's paying his way through college, I mean, number one, I respect he's going to be a doctor. He needs to get his emotions in control if he's going to be, dealing with people's lives. But I respect him doing it on his own. But that's a hell of an endeavor with a lot of debt. But he's too freaking young. My dad was a doctor, guys. I've mentioned this before in previous videos. And he was married and still in medical school. I'm from a second family. And he had little kids. And he advised my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, who's also a doctor, don't have any freaking kids or whatever while you're in medical school. And obviously they didn't. That's a lot to take on. He should take his time and focus on medical school, all that. And then when he's out and he's gotten some experience, then maybe get married and have kids, if that's what he still wants to do. Too early. And he goes on, he says, everybody is saying it's their life. Great. I'm not stopping them for living it. I don't try to stop them. And the only time I did was 2 weeks after I found out. I just don't want them in my life. That's all. Okay. And don't have them in your life. And who cares if people give you shit about it? And if your fiance has a problem, say, well then, I guess we don't have to get married. You get me and just me, not my parents. Take it or leave it. And I guarantee you, if she really wanted him, she'd say okay. And if she had a problem with it, okay. He can move on. He says, look, this is the best I got. You telling me to grow up ain't helping. So people are giving him shit. As another edit, he says here, I don't get this. Maybe this was the wrong platform for this. Nevertheless, I've had some very kind people reach out to me, but I think I just need to give me some more information that might help everyone here figure out what I'm thinking. Just stand in my shoes for a moment. Imagine you are told family is everything, and you go your whole life thinking what family is. You see your parents together, and you think they're like 99% of families out there. Then one day you find out that this isn't the case at all, and you find it abruptly. Your entire concept of a monogamous marriage collapses. So all along, he thought his parents were just a certain couple. And I believe upon reading this before, that they made it out to be that they really preached a certain lifestyle, and they weren't doing that. It says, your entire concept of monogamous marriage collapses. Then instead of trying to help their son figure this out, they tell you you're overreacting. You can't breathe. You want to leave the car. They won't let you. They keep driving. You think your windpipe is closing. You jump out of the car. They yell at you for jumping. They take you home. Good Lord, this dude is a drama queen. Trying to jump out of a moving car when he finds out about his parents. I get he's upset, but good Lord. And this is a future doctor. They yell at you for jumping. They take you home. Then while in the middle of having a panic attack, you see your mother put on lipstick. And then you think to yourself she's going back. You beg that just for a little while she'd be here to stay. She says she will. She calms you down. And then a little bit later, you see her leave. So after him freaking out on finding out what she was doing, calmed him down, put on her lipstick, and off out the door to suck somebody else's you-know-what. Great mom. Then you go to your room. Who do you tell about this? Who do you talk to? You cry and cry and cry. Smack. Dude, stop being a pussy. And no one listens. No one comes. No one says anything. The next morning you see that your mother isn't home, and then all those days when they weren't home colliding in. Yeah. So mom and dad are selfish as hell. They don't give a shit. And I get he's really, in my opinion, acting like a little too upset, a little too much of a crybaby here. He has every reason to be upset, but still, it's proven that just what he thought was his real life isn't it. And just, they don't care. When I had basketball practice, my father was really busy. What about my birthday? I taught myself to shave. I taught myself how to ride a bike. I taught myself to basically even drive. But they had time to have sex with others. See? Now we're getting into it. They were never there. He was probably an accident. And they're like, all right, we don't want to have the procedure, so we'll have a kid. But he taught himself to drive, ride a bike, shave, because his dad was never there. And you can see why he's so emotional, because he didn't have a dad to teach him some other aspects of being a man. Then everyone the next day pretends everything is normal. To you, these people aren't the people they said they are. They are laughing and going about their day like everything is normal. You eat your toast, you put everything down thinking, don't think about it, just don't think about it. You see everything down, nothing makes sense. You see them leave and you cry. You beg them to stop for a little while and they do that, but it all starts again. So you can see where this guy's rushing into a marriage to start a new family that is quote unquote normal. But these are shitty parents, and they have no business being parents. So I hope by sharing this story, somebody might think, maybe it's not a good idea to do this when you have kids. He goes on, for the next 2 years, you live in your car, your friend's couch, or in school because you're scared if you go back home, you'll have a panic attack. You feel like a stranger in your own home. You don't recognize these people. They lied to you about this. What else do they hide? Anyway, what else are they hiding? I wonder if they're spies. This reminds me of the show The Americans. You ever see that show with Kerry Russell and that other dude? When they were Soviet spies in America and their daughter eventually learned what they were, and obviously she was kind of having a meltdown about the whole thing, and then she got involved. But this kind of sounds like that. Because in the show, they were always on missions, and they were never around, and everything was very suspicious. Next update, he says, after talking to some people in the chat, it's obvious that even if I don't go into therapy, if I don't go to therapy for my parents, I need to go for my fiance. I don't think I will let them back in my life completely. But after talking to another Redditor and my fiance's insistence, I will call them to arrange for a meeting in a coffee shop. I want to write down everything I want to say to them, so in case I freeze, I can ensure that I know what I want to get across. She'll be there for me, of course, so hopefully I will have some support there. I think it's a very good idea that he, as an adult man, has some distance from them, says what he has to say, because he's no longer under their roof, so he can feel comfortable in that. And I write it all down. I think it'll be very good for him. And let it all out. I just hope they actually listen. And how they react will tell him everything he needs to know. And maybe just to get his fiancée off his freaking back, because obviously he doesn't have the balls to say, get off my fucking back. He'll do this. She'll see the reaction, and then she'll understand. I hope for him she understands. But this dude, he's got some issues. This guy I don't think therapy is always the answer for everything, because it seems like every fucking American is in therapy. I am not. But, although some people think I should be, my enemies, my haters, but it could do him some good, because he's got a lot of things to work out. So, for an update, it says here, the last few words, as I could add to the other post after I got delete or something. I've had a long talk with my fiance, and I do need therapy. Yeah, it'll help, dude. Also, I will not be inviting them to my wedding for everyone's sake. That's a good idea. Nevertheless, I'm making this last post after I write something in my reply to another comment that I think helps make a point of what I wanted to say here, but I couldn't the first time. In a direct message, it was suggested to me that I post this as a standalone post. Why? I do not know. Maybe a cathartic release. Maybe because the people who reached out to me thought this would do some good. I don't know, but here goes. He says, what hit me the hardest was 4 things. Now we're getting into some juicy details here. It says, number 1. My entire life, my parents led me to believe that the reason they couldn't come to my games, sometimes miss my birthday, or didn't have time to teach me how to ride a bike or drive a car, was because they were making these massive sacrifices. Well, you can see why he's pissed here. Missed birthdays, late to pick him up, didn't come to his games, events, all these different things, because they were off hooking up. She's hooking up with Chad and Tyrone, and he's hooking up with, I don't know, the female equivalent of Chad and Tyrone. This guy has good reason to be upset. When I asked my mom why she wasn't home or dad wasn't at home, they said, tell me they were working late. When I found out, it clicked in my head. They had at the time, they just didn't want to spend the time with me. How many nights did I have to make my own dinner? How many times did I tell the teachers my parents were late to pick me up because they were busy at work? How many of them actually knew what was happening? It's not a large town. They knew, I'm sure. These are terrible, terrible parents. I don't blame at all. Not want anything to do with them. And I certainly wouldn't invite him to the freaking wedding. And you would think his fiancée, if she actually loved him and he explained all this, would then see why. Again, dude gets a little bit emotional in my opinion, but he was very young and his whole world was screwed up. So I really want to give this guy a chance, but there's just sometimes when guys act too much of a crybaby, yeah, I can't help but want to smack him. But this guy's dealt with a lot of shit. Number 2. When I figured it out, they were not there for me. When I needed them the most, they left me in my room to cry it out. The one moment that will forever be burned in my brain, that of course finding my mother on the couch with that stranger, was after I found out we got home, I was having a panic attack, my fingers were crossing up, I was hyperventilating, I couldn't move my limbs. My windpipe felt like it was closing, my lips and tongue went numb, and my vision was going back to black spots to appear in front of me. In that moment, I saw my mother looking at the mirror and putting on lipstick. Great mom. Again, this is like the freaking Americans. I think they're spies. We just gotten home from me having caught her on another man's house, an image that troubled me so deeply that I had just jumped out of the car because the situation had made it hard for me to breathe. In the midst of this panic attack, she was preparing to go back out. After I calmed down, I begged, on my knees, gripping her legs, tears literally rolling down my cheeks for her to stay. Again, dude, this is... I'm picturing a 5-year-old here. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but just like, good Lord, man. Shit, maybe this is the reason they didn't want to be around him. I don't know. Can't help but say that. She promised me that she would, but then she left. I watched her walk out for an hour or so, and the promise she made to me, she did not. She went back to his house. I knew that what was happening there. She didn't come home all night, and I just cried the whole night. Smack! I know you're upset, but don't be a pussy. This hit me so hard. I meant nothing to them. I genuinely thought I was going to die, but she'd rather spend that time with him. I always viewed my mom as caring, but that's because she never gave anything up for me. When I asked her to stay, she had a choice to make. To show me she loved me and be there for me, but her carnal desires it was more important for her carnal desires to be fulfilled. She chose the latter, and it was devastating. Yeah, again, I'm thinking the Americans. She's off on a mission somewhere, and she has to be with some guy to achieve her mission. He says also, next, my whole life, they told me to focus on my studies. They told me that I shouldn't date, my mother said this especially, as it would affect my grades. They sold me on the idea that a marriage is between a man and a woman. Then one day, I'd find my mother bent over at the sofa getting nailed by a stranger, and everything fell. He comes home and sees that. Great. It made no sense, and they just said, well, this is who we are. Accept it. Well, that's very loving, Mom and Dad. These people never even gave me the SEX talk. I wouldn't want the SEX talk from these two assholes. I was so ashamed of myself that when I was young, I confessed I pleasured myself once my mother lost it on me. I was so ashamed of myself the whole life. Then I found out one day that their carnal desires are blessings, mine are sins. I wouldn't go admitting that thing to your parents unless you walked in on it. The last thing was they never stopped for me. I got them to stop for a month, barely, but even then I'm lying about that. They just made it much more discreet. I know they visited them while I was at practice, but that's just a gut feeling. I begged them that I couldn't handle this, just to please stop this. They didn't. After a month, I was back to normal, but this time they just went about it as like nothing happened. Now, little edits here. It says, I took some self-reflection and a little too much time to dig out memories that I blocked out. Also, if you know cheap therapy options, please send those to me. Yeah, dude, you need a therapist. You need to get this shit out. And preferably a man. A masculine man. And not one of these therapists is going to tell you to go forgive him and bring him back in your life. This guy needs to get some shit out so he doesn't screw up his life, because of that. As another edit, he says, everyone is sending me direct messages saying that I shouldn't reconnect my parents and that my fiancée shouldn't be pushing me to reconnect with them. I agree with that. She isn't anymore. Not since I sort of explained all this. Aha. Now this is a little bit better of a situation. He explained all this, now she's backing off. If anything, she has told me that I shouldn't, and maybe it's best I leave the door closed. I want to see them again. I want to read them exactly what I wrote above, but in first person and look them in the eyes while doing it. I actually think he should meet them and say what he has to say. Really, I do. I think that's part of helping him move on, because it seems like he's not going to be able to move on until he gets this off his chest. And he says here, I wrote a speech. I want them to hear it. Please note, another writer helped me write this. I feel as though I never got closure. I want it so bad that it makes me hate them to this day. So he actually took a moment and he wrote down what he's going to say to his parents. So I'll read this because I'm sure you're curious. He says, so here it is. Mom and Dad, I wish we could regain a relationship, but I'm not ready for that. You have the right to live your life however you choose. I left you to that, and I need you to leave me alone. What you didn't get then or now is that you betrayed me with your lies and omissions. You provided the foundation of what I thought a relationship and marriage should be, and then that shattered it and left me with the wreckage of the ideals you instilled. I was clearly distraught, traumatized, and overwhelmed, and you couldn't even stop your lifestyle long enough to help me through my grief and pain. You asked your child to empathize and see your viewpoint, but never paused to do the same for your child. When I needed you the most, you were absent because you chose about your other relationships. You did nothing to help me, even to a point that I could heal and accept it. Well, I'm definitely your son because I also choose me. I like that. I hope that I will heal so we can move on. But until the day comes, I need you to leave me alone. Well, there you go. Now, he doesn't need to meet them in person to say that. He can send that in a freaking email or something, or a letter. He can do certified mail to make sure they received it. But it seems to me he's got more to say. Maybe questions, I don't know. But if that's the part helping to move on, then so be it. But their actions, I'm all about actions, demonstrated time and time again, he meant nothing to them. So, fuck them. It's just sad when you have good people, you've been emotional people like this guy, but good people raised with shitty families. But that does not mean that you have to let them ruin your life. But you got to find a way to deal with it. heal and move on. I just hope he doesn't rush into this marriage trying to start a new family, and by him rushing to do that makes mistakes and screws himself up, his life, kids, all that. But these two, they haven't earned the right to be in his life, okay? And not once to hear anything about them being apologetic about anything like that, not at all. They don't give a shit, you know? Probably being bugged by somebody else to be in his life. You know, like, what happened to your son? Okay, I guess we should call him. But anyhow, guys, once again, this shows these alternative lifestyles, open marriages, they're just a mess. And they wreak havoc wherever they go. So, and by the way, right before I was about to do this video, I was on Google. They'll recommend, on your mobile app, they'll obviously recommend news articles. And right there in CNN, I wasn't looking at CNN, but they're recommending an article from CNN about open marriages. Kid you not. And obviously promoting, but putting a little thing saying may not work out, but the point is they're talking about it. You got mainstream media talking this up. Now, obviously CNN, the crybaby news network as I call it, is obviously geared towards a certain political group. We're probably more for these types of things. But regardless, it's a fucking mess. Don't go for it. For anybody watching this, it's not a good idea. It's a mess. Don't go for it. And for any guys as their gals bring it up, you know the rule. Break up with her. If she brings it up, it's already over. She's already cheating or got somebody else in mind. And the fact that people do this and they have kids involved, it's just terrible. This guy's screwed up. This guy's got problems. And he needs some help. Big time. I wish him the best. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.